You know, it's almost like your birthday with a package from China, so let's go. Okay, so another thing for, let's say, getting into, let's say, some other configurations, you need to slide all the way down here. You're finding the internet, Bluetooth, auto rotation, and light. But we're going to have like more options if you're going to be sliding it again. And in here we're finding the key mapper. So the key mapper is a piece of software that can be very beneficial if you want to like configure this with like shooting games that have no controller support, what I understand of, and the ambient light can be shut down. Yep, and I'm going to be like shutting it down now forever because the LEDs, man, they are freaking annoying. Alright, so the first part I just want to get into the emulation just to see how the overall performance is. So there are many different devices that can actually play all the way up to PlayStation 1 and even some Sega Dreamcast and some Sega Saturn. So you don't really need to buy an expensive product like this. So what I'm going to be focusing clearly is like of course on the PlayStation 2, Wii Emulation and GameCube, just to see how far we can push this device. Another feature you need to take consideration is of course the hybrid function, the Android. So for example over here I'm also going to be testing Street of Rage 4, Turtles, Shredder's Revenge and even some Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. There's like you're going to be some of them you need to play through the Netflix, let's say streaming or let's say gaming servers, and Street of Rage 4 needs to be bought. Nevertheless, if you're going to be looking into all of the features, maybe then this device is actually worth its money. Okay, the first test I wanted to do, getting into some Street Fighter of the Capcom 3 system. This runs without any problem, but we can play Killer Instinct and MAME, the more demanding, let's say, emulators. But another thing I just wanted to check out, how is the D-pad. So when this thing has an absolutely amazing feel, let's see how it responds when it comes to fighting games. Amazing audio this thing by the way has. So that seems to be working just fine. The inputs of this, let's say, D-pad is just great. So for fighting games, oh yeah. I think this is maybe one of the best D-pads that I've tried in the last couple of years when it comes to this, the devices. Whereas sometimes a hit or miss with Anbernic or Powkiddy, they absolutely nailed it with this. Pressing the back and home button will give you the retro arc option, where you can make a quick load, quick save, restart, and even tinker with the settings if you want to. So it's kind of cool, but we're going to be quitting retro arc and we're just going back to the main menu. And that's actually how it works out. I really love the way how this thing works and how it can easily like switch between games. And yeah, of course it can always be better with different launchers, but the launcher from the Anbernic itself, it's not absolutely bad. No, I like it. Okay, so next up let's try some N64. So this is a system that struggles a lot on these Android devices, particularly the first generation and the older ones that had not enough power. But the emulation performance, it's so much better now than when you're looking at the first generation of devices. We still got this weird thing going on with the emulator. So let's go further. Can we just play, or is it going to be absolutely... Oh my god, this is really like pissing me off. Let's see if this thing is actually configured. So out of the box it seems to be not working, or it does. Yep, it works. But here we can just see that the overall emulation performance is absolutely great. I think if you want to play some N64 with even higher resolutions, we just need to get ourselves like a Windows or a Steam Deck, because those things are even a little bit more expensive, but the overall performance is absolutely amazing. But for what you're getting, it's not bad at all. So let's move on to some Sega Saturn, where this is not the most demanding game you can actually play. I just wanted to see how it actually runs. Man, recording of this thing is absolutely a nightmare because the front glass is so reflective. It's absolutely like a nightmare. Okay, so let's check out. We can use the D-pad for like shmups. It works fine. Besides the shooters, the analog stick hasn't been configured, so we cannot use this. But the emulation performance on native resolution works just great on Sega Saturn. Where we had like with the cheaper devices, we also had like a lot of problems with this, but this seems to be working just fine. It's absolutely great. This game is absolutely legendary. Okay, so I'm booting up some Dreamcast with Sonic Adventure 2. This is one of those games that really takes advantage of the speakers inside this thing. Wow. Man, it's absolutely flabbergasting how good it sounds. And you know, that is what you're getting with some like premium devices. But let's get into the game itself. So with a device like this is absolutely amazing, and I think if you're going to be messing around with some Redream, you can even like upscale it to higher resolutions, and still getting an amazing overall, let's say, experience. Just going to leave it as is.
Security door breach. Emergency formation. Intercept intruder.
Wow, absolutely great. But you can go back over here into the Redream that is pre-installed. You can just see what kind of, let's say, aspect ratio it is set to, having the system and everything else. But I'm guessing they're using the normal version, so we're not getting the option for having upscaling going on. So if you're going to be activating it, that is something I should have done. You can just activate and mess around with the system, and even having, like, say, the unlocked version having new features. We're not even surprised you can even like run this thing on 720p maybe. So one of the things I always mess up is the audio, but so far so good. I don't see any problems, I don't hear any problems. And playing some old school, like say Tekken 3 on this is going to be absolutely a blast to the past with some native resolution. And also here, I will not say you're going to be can upscale it, because PlayStation 1 is quite difficult to emulate on these devices if you're going to be upscaling it to, let's say, high resolutions. But as is, it looks absolutely amazing. Absolutely great. Here we're having the option with RetroArch. You can just notice with the Dreamcast we had a different menu because we're using a completely different emulator. Or at least we didn't have like an front end going on, so actually when trying to play a couple of games you see like it runs through RetroArch, but with the Dreamcast we were running actually through Redream. That is a separate, let's say, program. So the instrument, everything that works kind of cool and absolutely works great. We're getting in some more PlayStation 1, it's absolutely a lot of fun. Let's see if they configured the analog stick and the D-pad. Yep, you can just play with both. And the overall performance on this thing is absolutely great. So I already mentioned a couple of times in the videos, like the audio feature of this thing is absolutely great. And like Sega Dreamcast or PlayStation 1, when you're actually playing this, you can just hear the audio, how great it is. I also implemented the audio files. So yeah, this is absolutely a blast to the past with this. I love it. And personally, I don't really mind if it's going to be running on native resolution from this point on. D-pad responsive. I love the A and B buttons, or at least the B and Y buttons at this point. They're very responsive, even if you're going to be switching between it for like actually having like the drifting mode. This is great. Pressing this will give you the RetroArch menu again, because it's running on the rearmed emulator through RetroArch. Quitting back, that's it. Another thing I just wanted to check out, and I think a lot of people were interested to seeing the PlayStation 2 be running on this. So let's start off with some Tekken Tag, because that's one of the games I do see when it comes to PlayStation Portable. It's going to be an overall mixed performance with the emulator that is pre-installed on this. Okay, so PlayStation 2 is a system a lot of people were asking for. So with the Windows, let's say x86 devices, we can play PlayStation 1 without any problem. But with this, you can just hear from the audio standpoint that it runs really slow with a lot of dips. And this is the problem I'm having with this. Maybe with some let's say installing a different emulator, we can get an overall better performance. You can also like getting into the settings, go start like messing around with this, having a fast boot already, let's say, enabled, so that's great, so it started into the game. But you know, it's more like a compatibility issue. You can just like the GPU rendering can be maybe switched out. Upscaling multiply has just set to native, so we cannot change anything out there. But you know, that's the thing. It's going to be a hit or miss with PlayStation. So let's try a different game and give you a look that not everything is going to be running that bad. So let's try another game where we have like minor dips. This game runs perfectly, or almost perfectly, on the device. It's absolutely great, you know. So it's like a hit or miss with PlayStation 2. Not only the overall performance when it comes to, let's say, the device itself, but it is particular of like the emulator support and the game. I find it still such a weird game. But there you have it. The all famous dip. I have no idea what's going on. Somehow, it just dips now. But in other words, I think if you guys really want to play PlayStation 2, you can just tinker with emulators and all kinds of weird things. But after resetting, just going back into an emulator, there was just like an emulator problem. Now it seems to be running just fine. But this is the experience you want to have with such an expensive product. For me, if I should choose, I'd rather get myself like a Steam Deck or something that runs it without any problem. One other thing I also noticed when it comes to this particular device is like sometimes you need to get into, let's say, the emulator itself, because we do have still the freaking annoying buttons. So going to the settings over here, then going to the controls, and here we can disable the untouched controls. Okay, so that was one of the things. Graphics, so let's see what's running. Vulkan, no frame skipping. And let's see, still the native resolution. You can always like tinker with this if you want to just play in not saying just a certain game. If it's not like a very demanding game, like a two-dimensional one, you can just mess around with the settings, seeing if this is going to be running overall better. But this device is so much more powerful, where I do expect overall good performance when it comes to playing some PlayStation Portable. Let's get into the game. Frames per second is still 60. Of course, Tekken 6, it's less demanding than, let's say, in God of War, but just see what happens if we're going to be booting up the game. You see it dip to 47. But with this particular one, let's say, device, oh man, playing PlayStation 2 emulation was a mixed overall performance, but with PlayStation, it runs absolutely great. It looks great, it sounds great. And also with this, if you have problems when it comes to compatibility, you can always see to upgrade the PlayStation Portable, let's say, emulator, and get an overall better performance there. And again, tinkering is sometimes necessary. Alright, so let's do the test, the all-famous, the God of War change of kinkiness. Oh man, I lost this the turbo function to speeding up the game. Native resolution, no craziness. Just to see how it actually runs, and you can just see that. It's a minor big hiccups there and there, but nothing like really bad, okay. Oh yeah, that like slicing move really needs to be rendering a lot of, let's say, frames per second. This is also a moment where it sometimes stutters, but the overall experience is quite good. Yes, you need to return fire, I know, I've played this part too many times. Okay, so this is another system that I just needed to check out with one of my, let's say, favorite games, the Metal Slug clone, Dolphin Blue. And the reason why, because this game had so much trouble on game boxes and just cheap handhelds. Now we have enough juice to actually really enjoy it, a full 60 FPS. Let's get in the next part, because the next part we're going to be having a lot of stuff going on. Riding the dolphin, oh yeah! But you can see no problem whatsoever. Where Thomas Wave don't have a lot of titles, there are like a lot of hidden gems there. So you can just see, it runs absolutely great. One of the best overall performances you have seen when it comes to, let's say, the handhelds from Anbernic. Moving on to some GameCube and some Wii. And with this, we're having like just quite an overall, let's say, nice performance, but it is pushing the device to its limit. They're still using, let's say, the normal Dolphin emulator, what I know of. Let's see how everything is configured. Okay, now we're actually using the trigger buttons at the back. I'm guessing this is brake. Yep. It's completely widescreen shenanigans going on over here, but for now I'm just going to leave it as it is. But the emulation performance is nice. It's absolutely great. Alright, there we go. Only analog stick has been configured. I've reached the point now that we can, let's say, buy a handheld that can actually emulate some Wii as some, let's say GameCube. Going back to the menu, we'll give you the emulator. Alright, can quick save, exit emulator. I want to make one thing sure, is like what kind of emulator they're running. Aha, so the Dolphin emulator is the MGR2 and also the Dolphin emulator itself. They implemented in both emulators, so it's kind of interesting they went for this, where the MMJR2 has absolutely overall better performance with many of, let's say, other games. Okay, let's go back to the part where we're talking about. Okay, let's see if we can boot it up. Can I get into the old game? And you can see with this particular game we still have, let's say, all the front-facing touch button. Oh, you know, it's kind of annoying that you need to go into the menu and every single time removing those. So where the previous game, the Ridge Racer game, was actually being used through the Dolphin emulator, now we're going to be using the MMGR2 for overall better performance. Let's see how actually good it performs. Let's crank up the volume over here. No struggles whatsoever. So when it comes to the overall performance, I'm quite surprised how good it is and how fluent it works. But I didn't test a lot of, let's say, 8-bit and 6-bit stuff because that runs just fine on this. You know, you don't need to buy like a 200 plus device to actually play that. I think where this thing really shines is actually the other stuff that we've shown cases here. PlayStation 2, Wii, GameCube. There's why you need to buy such a powerful and expensive product for.